He had just left the kitchen, intending to finally start a conversation with his elusive redhead, when his brother, Connor, snuck up behind him, threw an arm over his shoulder, and said, "What's the crack, Drehar Bake?" Calder sighed, pinched the bridge of his nose, and said, "Bloody hell." "Oh, come now. I may not be a redhead, but surely you can manage a little love for your most handsome brother." Calder just stared at him, stunned and speechless. Connor barked out a laugh and said, "You haven't exactly been subtle, lad. I didn't notice your new obsession, but I have my adoring fans to keep me occupied. But big brother Liam, he notices everything." Calder sighed and said, "I should have known." Connor replied, "Yeah, you really should have. But, at least in this case, you happen to be pursuing something our loving brother approves of. Which brings me to why I'm here, with you, instead of the aforementioned adoring fans. Liam asked me to relieve you of your duties for the evening, so you may go pursue this intriguing redhead, who happens to also be, stop me if you've heard this one, a fae. And I am absolutely dying to know why I know nothing of this little hottie. Granted, I play for a different team, but I still like to know all the players. Anyway, I'm tagging in, so bring on the annoying fires. I'll put 'em all out. You can thank me later. And you should also thank Liam, you know. But I'll leave that between you and him. Happy hunting, bud. Sloan." Connor slapped him on the back a little harder than was strictly necessary, and started to walk away. Calder grabbed his arm, spun him around, and gave him a quick hug, whispering, "Thank you, brother." Connor smiled at him, showing off dimples that drove the other boys crazy, and replied, "My pleasure, love. Now go find her." Calder quickly compartmentalized the gratitude he was feeling. Gratitude for Connor wasn't that unusual. Gratitude for Liam, however, that was a different story. But he could deal with that later. Right now, he had a redhead to stalk. He quickly scanned the ballroom and just happened to catch a glimpse of red curls disappearing around the corner. He quickly followed, hoping to catch her alone, or at least with only her cinnamon-eyed friend. He wasn't quite quick enough, though, and the door to the safe room clicked shut as he turned the corner. "Crap," he thought. "I left the venue keys in the kitchen." He turned around and nearly ran back through the ballroom. Unfortunately, not everyone had gotten the memo that Connor was taking over for him, so he had to gently but firmly extricate himself from a couple of different conversations. He finally reached the kitchen, grabbed his keys, and headed back across the ballroom toward the safe room. The entire time he was going over in his head what he would say, how he would introduce himself, ways he might compliment her. He really needed to make a good impression. He reached the safe room door, took a deep breath, unlocked it, and opened the door in one smooth motion. What he saw made him question his sanity. Next to the safe, the dark-haired girl with cinnamon eyes was putting the money, or most of it at least, into the safe and writing down the amount in the logbook. None of that was unusual, but the rest of the scene more than made up for it. The object of his infatuation was in the process of tossing what appeared to be a tiny red mouse into the air. The mouse then shifted mid-air into a scarlet macaw, who turned back to face the redhead. As if that wasn't strange enough, the silver-eyed fae took that opportunity to toss a big wad of cash into the air and give a little twist with her hand, sending a gust of air to help guide the money into the parrot's waiting claws. The bird grabbed the cash, flew up to some ductwork near the ceiling, and dropped the money into what appeared to be a backpack partially filled with other wads of cash. Calder kept looking back and forth between the two fae, occasionally glancing up to the parrot, not wanting to believe his eyes. "I finally found someone I'm interested in. She's even a fae, which causes some problems but eliminates others. And she's a bloody thief." He shook his head, a look of disgust coming over his face. He stepped into the room, the sound causing all three females to whip their heads toward him and freeze. He closed the door behind him. No need to involve anyone else in this circus, he thought. As he took another step toward Keegan, her temporary paralysis dissolved, and she squared up to him and called fire into both her hands. That stopped him dead in his tracks. Another debulcia? Damn, I hate that word. How the feck was that even possible? His brain began spinning off in directions he couldn't keep up with. However, Keegan chose that moment to cause the flames in her palms to flare up, redirecting his attention nicely. Anya leapt off the ductwork and shifted into an eagle, diving down to land on one of the tables beside Keegan, making her allegiance clear. Kara decided it was time for some damage control. She stepped up next to Keegan, put her hand on her shoulder, and calmly said, "Everyone take a deep breath." Keegan said, her eyes never leaving Calder. "I'll breathe when I'm dead." "Wait, that didn't come out right." Kara patted her back and said, "Love, I think you can put the flames away. I don't believe we're in any imminent danger, but I do think we need to have a conversation, and time is limited." Keegan glanced at her friend and then Anya with a questioning look. "Don't ask me," Anya said with as much of a shrug as her eagle wings could manage. "I'm ride or die. I'll light the place on fire and laugh as we watch it burn if that's what you need from me. But, yeah, de-escalation is maybe not my strong suit." Keegan thought about it for a moment, and then clenched her fists, causing the flames to die. Kara said, "All righty then. Why don't we start with some introductions? I am Kara Delaney, a fae from the Air Clan. At least, my mom is of the Air Clan. My dad was human, so I'm half-breed." The look of shame that quickly crossed her features at that term told Calder most of what he needed to know about her. He nodded politely at Kara, then looked at Keegan, waiting for her introduction. Keegan stared back defiantly for a minute, then Kara cleared her throat and elbowed Keegan lightly in the ribs. "Oh, fine. My name is Keegan Doran, and I belong to the Fire Clan, obviously." Then she clamped her lips shut and refused to say any more. Calder, slightly amused by Keegan's attitude, said, "But didn't I just see you use air power as well?" Keegan's eyes widened, and she stammered, No, just fire. You must be mistaken." Calder crossed his arms over his chest and said, "Oh, really? I don't think I am. Right after you tossed the mouse/parrot in the air, you used air power to guide the money into its claws." Keegan shook her head. "Nope, that was just a perfect toss." The look of stubbornness on her features convinced Calder to back off that particular point for a moment. Anya whistled and said, "Yoo-hoo! Mouse parrot over here. Since nobody else wants to introduce me, I guess I'll do it myself. The name is Anya, and I'm most definitely not an it." She took that opportunity to shift back to her parrot form and continued her commentary, ostensibly talking to herself, but at an increased volume. "How could anyone mistake me for anything other than a queen absolutely boggles the mind. But maybe he's a little slow." Calder's lips twitched, but he mostly maintained a straight face. "Okay, then. I guess it's my turn. My name is Calder O'Phelan, and my family belongs to the Earth Clan." Then he held his hand out toward a potted plant located near the curtained windows, whose buds were almost ready to flower. With a twist of his wrist, all the buds trembled, and gorgeous, deep red blossoms burst forth. It was so beautiful that Keegan couldn't contain a small gasp, and her defiant expression finally softened a bit. Calder looked at Keegan, and she glanced away from the plant and back at him. "Do I trust her?" he thought. "I don't know anything about her. But she is Dubolsha, no matter what she says. I know what I saw, and there's that damn feeling again that I should keep her close, protect her." Then he gave a slight nod as if coming to a decision. He reached his hand up, clenched his fist, and pulled downward. Suddenly, several tiny droplets of water appeared out of the air and followed the motion of his hand. He guided the water over to the newly transformed plant to give the newly transformed plant a drink. Anya let out a squawk and said, "Holy shit turds, Batman! I did not see that one coming." The three other Fae looked at each other, and all started cackling. After a minute, Keegan shook her head and mumbled, "Fuck my life." Calder took a deep breath and said, "All right, lasses, let's begin again. Now that we both know about our special abilities, maybe you can explain why you're stealing money from sick children." Keegan pinched the bridge of her nose and shook her head. Kara said, "I told you. Monster." Keegan said, "First of all, we aren't really stealing it. We're simply borrowing it, because we will definitely pay it back." Now it was Kara's turn to pinch the bridge of her nose and shake her head. Calder gave a short laugh and said, "Not sure where the present tense is coming from, because you have been caught. Red-handed. You're not leaving here with that money. I can't be much clearer than that." Keegan took a deep breath to retort, but Kara stepped between the two, lifted her hands, and said, "Time out." Calder took a slow, deep breath and thought, "Not only is she a thief, but she's also a stubborn ass. She does have gorgeous eyes, though. Damn it." He shook his head to clear his mind. "I need that money," thought Keegan, desperation increasing by the minute. Kara lowered her hands and looked at Keegan, saying, "Of course we're not keeping the money, Keegan. Of course we're not keeping the money. Keegan, we'll be lucky if we don't go to jail." That gave Keegan pause, and she swallowed hard, thinking about possible ramifications. Calder stared at them for a full minute. Then he started pacing back and forth in front of the door, obviously having an internal debate. "I don't have any reason to trust them, but I can't shake this feeling that I'm supposed to." Finally, he decided to put them out of their misery. "I'm not going to send you to jail." They both let out audible sighs. "But I do think I deserve to know why you were trying to steal from us." Kara lowered her eyes and took a step back. This was Keegan's story to tell. Keegan's eyes got a faraway look in them. She said, "When my mom found out she was pregnant with me, she was terrified. She'd grow up with that stupid prophecy. I'm sure you know the one I'm talking about." Calder gave a curt nod and said, "The Aisling prophecy, also known as the Debolsha curse?" "The very one," she said with disdain. "So, she did the only thing she could think of. She ran. She came to Earth, had me, and that, she thought, was that. But a few months ago, right after my 21st birthday, actually, she started getting sick. She just keeps getting weaker and weaker, and nobody can tell me why. We don't have much money, and it costs a lot to hire a specialist to figure it out." She paused and caught a hitching breath. "So, that's why I need to borrow some money." Calder said, "No, I won't lend you any money." She felt her eyes welling with tears, so she quickly looked at the floor. He stepped closer to her and lifted her chin with one finger until she looked him in the eye. "Her skin's so soft," he thought. "Come on, man, focus. I didn't say I wouldn't help you, but I really don't think your human doctors will be able to help, no matter how much you pay them." Keegan blinked her tears back and said, "But then, what can I do? I can't just let her die. I won't." Looking thoughtful, he cocked his head to one side and said, "Let me go speak to my mother. If she doesn't know something that will help, she will insist on finding someone who does. The LC have millennia of experience treating illness and injury. Someone will know what to do." Keegan turned to Kara and collapsed against her friend, shuddering with relief at the thought of finally finding a cure for her mother. "Maybe I won't have to do something I'm ashamed of," she thought. Kara stroked her hair and whispered soothing nonsense against her ear, swaying back and forth. Calder turned partially away for a moment, giving Keegan and Kara a moment. Then he cleared his throat and said, "There's one other thing. If I'm going to be spending a great deal of time going back and forth to Tir na Nog, and I truly don't mind doing so, but I'm going to need some help with my business. I have no doubt that you three lasses can help keep me from falling behind. I will, of course, pay you for your labour, extremely well, provided I get your best effort." Anya waddled across the table toward Calder and said, "Can I get paid in crickets and jewellery?" With great difficulty, Calder managed to keep a straight face and replied, "Of course, Queen." Anya stuck her wing out and said, "Deal." Calder gently shook her wing and repeated, "Deal."